This is a good start,
no.
though. This is a good start. We're good.
I'm just going to roll into it. I'm going to start by talking about my voice because we just tried to start and my voice is going, and I apologize to everyone, but we're going to do our best with what we are working with today. I just went on a trip and I think I'm getting sick is what's happening. But hi, Joseph. How are you doing?
Good. So I want to talk about where you went. I have a few questions about that as well, and just some songwriting and music production questions about that. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm really excited. I know you do sync work, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
What can you talk a little bit about what you do and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, of course. So I do production for sync. Sync is taking music and synchronizing it to any type of visual. So I primarily work with brands. So I started in about 2012, started doing just sync work and pitching out, and got my first piece of music signed, I believe it was 2014, and had my first placement, which was Keeping Up with the Kardashians in 2015. And just been doing a bunch of sync work since then, branching out, working with different brands. Just found out I had a placement with Hornitos Tequila, which is cool.
Oh, nice. That's
so
awesome.
super happy on that. Yeah, a bunch of sync work. And outside of that, I do mixing and mastering.
Awesome. Cool. So do you define yourself as like an engineer, producer, both?
I like to say producer, but I think that always has the implication of a songwriter too. So I always put songwriter/producer. Mixing and mastering is always part. I do everything in-house for my own work. And I recently started outsourcing that to have clients for mixing and mastering. So up until about a couple of years ago, it's just been me doing my own music and my own mixing and my own mastering just for my own projects.
Awesome. Sweet. Cool. So how do you get things placed for sync? Like, what's the process like for you, and what's the process like in general?
So the first thing that I have to go to is, how do you write songs for sync versus as an artist? And we see that there are different elements. So the first thing lyrically is that we should be more general. We should never have lyrics that are going to contrast with what's on the screen. The more general you are, the more of an ability you have to get that in many different places rather than pigeonhole yourself into one spot. So beyond that, once you have good lyrics and the production is good, production for sync, back 20, 30 years ago, it used to be that production music was a little bit of wasn't as high as quality of what you get for the radio. So now it has to be radio ready, broadcast quality is what essentially is what they're looking for. So once you have a good song, it's a matter of finding different catalogs. Music supervisors are a great way too, if you want to cut the middleman out and just find, if you have a piece of music that's specifically good for a show, everything's online now, so you could see who the music supervisor is for the show, reach out to them on Twitter or however you want to outreach to them. And that could be one of the harder ways, but it's the direct way. Catalogs.
I've heard people recommending that, to like find an actual person at the library or at the organization or whatever it is, right? Like, that's supposed to be better if you can manage it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. If you can be personable and really know who you're reaching out to and know their background and do a little bit of your homework, that always is the most important way. These catalogs and these companies get so many emails every day. So for you to stick out is for you to be personable and be yourself. And of course, the music speaks for itself, if not. But yeah, always making sure to do your homework on it.
Cool. So do you tend to, you work more with the individual companies as opposed to like sending into a sync library? Is that true?
I've done both. I've done both. I find that libraries are great for a starting point for people to get into. And there are different tiers of libraries as well. So you'll get, I used to be a member of Taxi Music, which is great. But they used to refer to libraries as like a grade A tier, grade B, C, D, etc. So there are libraries that you can get into, which are just great starting points. They build your resume, and potentially, we always hope it gets you a placement. But yes, libraries are a great starting point. And another thing that I used to like to do in addition to libraries, because it's such a long game, is just seeing anyone on social media that already has some exposure or just some experience with the libraries, and see if you can collab or co-write with them.
Mm.
Always a great opportunity for someone to get in if they haven't yet.
Yeah, cool. I've heard too, like you talk about finding people that already get music in libraries. Like, I've heard recommendations, or if you find something that works, just stick with that, so to speak. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel over and over. If like you're making a style of music that gets into the libraries and works, that you should just continue with that. What are your thoughts on that?
So does that come from a point of genre, sticking in your lane of what kind of music you're doing, or more of a
Maybe.
business? You're going for the specific company and you're continuing to stick and drive to get into that individual company.
The way I heard it, it seemed like it was kind of more about genre and more about like, oh, if you have a formula, then do your formula, right? And then it comes into this whole thing where, like, from my perspective, it's like you're thinking about your music more as a craft rather than like an art, which I love it both ways, right? When you're doing it like a craft, you're like, you're going to go from start to finish faster potentially. And like, you get really good practice that way, I feel like. So I'm not like hating on doing it like a craft, but I think it does come from that kind of perspective a little more, maybe, is the impression I got. But I could be getting that wrong. I don't know.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah. So I think that is one of the big things that artists should really find is the self-awareness of what is your strength in the music industry, in songwriting and production. What I went through many different genres before I found the niche that I'm in, which is, doing different pop and hip hop and electronic styles is what I primarily
Cool.
do. But I
Mhm.
went through, as primarily being an acoustic guitarist, I was doing a lot of singer-songwriter and different things like that, which are used. Every single genre is used in sync,
Mhm.
but it's not as sought after as the more upbeat pop, electronic, just things that are very contemporary.
Mhm.
So I do think it's, no matter what genre you do, I think it's important to find your lane and to stick with it and to really just be the person for that genre. My goal in the beginning was to just be pretty good at everything, but I found that as I started to dive into electronic music, I was getting emails saying, "Hey, I was the go-to guy for electronic music."
Mhm.
So it is a matter of that, and also knowing which libraries and catalogs and studying what they're signing and what's getting placed is
Mhm.
important too, because that gives you some direction. Um, it's a great place to study as well. A lot of the pieces of music that they sign are on the websites. So you can just go on the website, you can study. I love how you use the word
It's
formula,
great.
by the way. It's something that so many people shy away from because it feels like it's taking away from our artistry
Right.
and our creativity. But at the end of the day, it's the blend of just being creative and have the technicalities of just what works and what is proven to work
Mhm.
that gets you the best results.
Yeah. And I also think of it like, when you're making, like, I do a lot of electronic stuff too, right? When you're making a beat, for example, I feel like it's a little more like painting, right? Whereas like performing on an actual physical instrument is a little more like dancing or something. And
Hmm.
so because it's more like painting, I feel like we're more likely to be like, oh, you have to sit there and perfect it forever, right? And it's like this art thing. But when you're doing it like a craft more, I feel like that brings it a little closer to like the live performance type of thing, right? Where I mean, you're still gonna spend more time perfecting it and whatever, but it's like, why hate on it? Because you're just shifting it towards that. Like we respect the performance side of it and like that. I don't know. That's just me being
Yeah.
weird, I guess. But
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the exact same way. I find that being able to do the production side rather than kind of the painting side, which is great, is nice to where you can kind of hermit into your studio and really get into your own
Mhm.
mind and not having the performance aspect of it in any way of the play. So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Sweet.
Mhm.
I had another question. I forgot it already. But what DAW are you in?
I am in Logic Pro, the best DAW out there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Look, this is a Pro Tools channel, so
I was thinking one of the
wow.
things I wanted to talk about is we could do a full out battle of Pro Tools versus Logic. And
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't wanna breed animosity here. I think we should all just get along.
they're both great, but we both know
Yeah.
which one's better.
Whoa. Yeah, we do. We do. Okay. Wow. Um, how about have you done much working with like groups of people on stuff for sync, or Is it primarily how does that tend to work?
So yes, I have. I've done collaborations on sync. I tend to keep it to a minimal level of terms of how many collaborators and co-writers. I think it creates a comfort with the catalog to make sure that they don't have to go around and chase signatures and everyone for any authorization for the track. Now, they do have something that I would recommend if someone is getting to bigger collaborations is to go out and get a split sheet or a one-stop agreement so that one person can be in control of the authorization of signing a piece of music so that the companies just feel more comfortable that they don't have to go around again and chase the people down to get authorization. Sure. So in my experience, I've loved to do collaborations. I think it just yields different results and which makes different companies interested in the different sounds that you get out of it. It is always great to have your own piece of music too. And you do it on your own, whereas you are just the only composer on it and you get all of the front end and the back end. You can't complain about that. So that's always a good perk on that.
Cool. Yeah, you mentioned the split sheets and stuff. I've noticed that the sync libraries seem to they care a lot about having all your paperwork in order. And like it makes sense, right? But yeah, what other kind of things do people have to look out for when they're submitting? What should everyone have prepared when they're submitting for a sync library?
So one of the biggest things that you should have is all of your, usually recommended to have the different alt versions. So you have the instrumental, the full version, the acapella, maybe some different alternate versions, which have maybe no melody, no drums, just the drums and bass. Ultimately, what a company might ask for differs. I've had companies ask for those alt versions. I also have had companies ask for the stems. That can be nice to have as well. A lot of times we do provide the alternate versions, but maybe a company just wants something that's different than what we gave them. So the stems gives them the opportunity to subtract things, to change the mix of things even sometimes. For example, if we have a piece of the full version and they have dialogue in the commercial or whatever it might be, they're going to want to mix that with a no melody version so that they can have the dialogue be on top. So just giving them whatever can make their lives easier is what we want to provide. And from there, it is important to have a one-stop agreement. And really just be transparent about the ownership and not only the ownership, but what your intent is. I think sometimes we can assume that it's obvious that if we're reaching out to a catalog that we want to get our music into their catalog, but sometimes we have to be a little bit more upfront than we think. And that our intent is we want to be able to get our music signed and represented by you because you guys are a great company. And we've seen the success that you guys have had before.
Cool. Do you, if you bring in like a studio musician, for example, to work on something, do you do that much? Do you, sorry, I'll say the second part of my question, then I'll, if you do, when you do you, do you have contracts for them? What kind of paperwork do you need for that?
So, I do mostly remote work, but either way, what I like to do is split sheets straight from the top, and make sure that personally what I do is just very even 50-50, just to make sure that I don't like counting lyrics and counting words and all of that. I think it's too much.
Yeah, I like doing the same thing. I think there was something recently too. There was like some kind of study where if you split it evenly, for music specifically, it pans out better. Like your group's more likely to last, more likely to succeed, more likely to, I forget all the details, but it's like, it makes sense. It's like, if you start, I don't know, tearing it apart, deciding who contributed what, it can be very contentious. So
I agree. And I think it keeps the motivation, just that we're an even team and we're both going to get the same kickback on whatever it is. So it gives us the motivation to pitch it and to just represent it. And that's the other thing for catalogs is a lot of the agreements are 50-50 where we keep 50% of the overall ownership, the writer's share, and they get we get 100% of the writer share and they get 100% of the publisher share. So it
Mhm.
ends up being a 50-50 between the writers and the catalogs. So as we're choosing our catalogs and pitching it out, we want to make sure that we did so much work on our half that we want to make sure the catalog's going to put in that same amount of work. And unfortunately, I have plenty of pieces of music that are collecting dust in catalogs. So
Mm.
just lessons learned to make sure that they're putting in the work as well, and gonna really pitch the music that we put out.
Mhm. Have you found that different catalogs seem to put your music out there more often, or?
Yeah, I think different catalogs have exposure to different clients. So
Mhm.
they might have a need for a specific music or a type of music. So when we're pitching our music, just a piece of advice for anyone, if we do get a rejection, it's always time and place. So one catalog might not need your pop music and another one has had clients that have been begging for it for the past couple months or whatever it might be.
Right.
So continue to pitch. It's really just casting your nets out very wide.
Mhm. That makes me think of the story of the Beatles getting rejected because like, guitar music's over.
I don't know if I know this story.
Oh, yeah, someone rejected it was some I forget which company, but it was some executives. I think there's, like, one guy specifically that rejected the Beatles. Oh my gosh, my voice, I'm sorry. Rejected the Beatles, and, they said it was because like, guitar music is on its way out, and they just they weren't into it, and then, like, shortly thereafter, the Beatles.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And maybe they were pioneers. I missed the 3-minute guitar solos and just I missed that so much. But yeah, it's the beauty of the classic rock. But yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like one of those classic stories where it's like, "Oh, just keep going," Like, you know,
Absolutely.
I don't
Yep.
but, yeah. How about, when your stuff does get placed, is it it's usually, like, short chunks of your song that gets placed, right? How does that tend to work out? Um is payment dependent on how long a chunk of your song is? I don't know. How does that work out?
Yeah. Payment is usually 9 to 12 months after your placement.
Mhm.
So, and the unfortunate part of that process is that the companies don't have time to outreach to let you know that your music has been placed. So a lot
Oh,
of times when you see on my Instagram that I'm posting about a placement, it's the first time that I heard about it as well.
yeah.
So and then I have to go and kind of do a lot of research to see if I can locate it and even see where it exists.
So how do you find out? Is it like a friend tells you?
So I've had that happen. I've had people say, "Hey, I was just watching Netflix and I just heard your music on there," which
Yeah.
has been cool. I had a really cool experience where I was watching football last season and I heard one of my tracks on it as well, and
Cool.
that was the first time. That was one of my goals that I always wanted to hit.
Mhm.
So beyond that, you look at your PRO statements, and typically they'll have those. So whether you're ASCAP or BMI or CSAC or anywhere international that watches
Mhm.
here, you'll look there. And payment is dependent on a few things. So it is on the length of the track. It also is the time of the day. So if you
Mm.
have a placement that's in the middle of the night, it's not going to get as many viewers, so they're not going to pay out as well. The different broadcast channels, so wherever you have your music placed, that's going to make a difference too. So there's a difference between getting placed on HBO and like PBS.
Mhm.
Very, very different.
Yeah.
um yeah, so a lot of times and then there's always this mysterious kind of void that we don't know how it really works beyond that. So that's what I know, but yeah, there's always this part where we're all still trying to figure it out, and how ASCAP might pay you more than BMI for a similar replacement, and there's
Mhm.
so many mysterious things that we all still try to figure out.
Do you recommend one of the PROs over the others?
So I can tell you what I've heard, but I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure that it's
I've heard
true.
they're all kinda similar.
hmm
Okay, keep going.
so CSAC is a smaller company. So if they always say if you want to be personalized and you're not a number, you are a name, CSAC. And I think it's the one that you do have to either you might have to like do an audition or you have to have some type of qualifications to get in. It's not
Mm.
like BMI and ASCAP where you just pay the fee and then you're
Yeah.
do an application or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, from what I've heard, ASCAP pays a little bit I think it's ASCAP pays a little bit more for vocal songs and BMI pays a little bit more for instrumental songs. It might be the other way
Okay.
around. I'm trying to think. It's not like a crazy amount, but I've seen some people in the business like AB their ASCAP and BMI and notice the
Yeah.
differences.
Huh.
For me, I am ASCAP. They've been great for me.
Hmm.
Of course, I don't know what's on the other side and what that would be like, but
Yeah.
I've had no issues with them. How about you? Are you on a PRO and what do you use? I'm just curious.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm
We need to
not.
get you on it.
Yeah, I've had it on my to-do list for a while now. Especially now that I'm starting to work with some people that are doing sync, and I'm like, okay, I need to. But yeah, I've been just working as an engineer for a long time. So like most of the stuff that I've worked on, I'm not even the one like uploading it to streaming or doing any of that stuff with it. And it's like they paid me. I don't, you know.
Yeah.
And now it's been cool. I've been working with more people who are like offering me like points and stuff, and I'm doing more stuff that I'm really into and I really like. So it's starting to change, and I'm like, okay, I need to get on one. So that's something I've been personally thinking about a lot lately is like which one to sign up for. Um, and I don't know which one to, but I'll probably just
So
pick one, you know?
yeah, ASCAP and BMI, and especially for you being on that for sync, they send you the contract and they kind of expect you to have your PRO
Yeah.
number. So
Yeah.
just to be ahead of the game and have it is always smart. But that's great. Yeah, glad to see that you're getting on top of that.
Yeah. Slowly. I've been thinking about it for like months now, and I'm like, oh, I got to do that. And I just keep moving the to-do item on my calendar a day over, you know?
Yeah,
So that's fun.
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna happen tomorrow, I swear.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
it'll happen. But yeah, you do have to be registered with one of those to submit stuff for sync, right? So
You can submit, but you can sign. You can sign a contract.
mhm.
Well,
Oh,
if you want to
okay.
get paid, you should. You should if
Yeah,
you want
you
to
need
get
it to
paid.
get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just kind of scrolling some of our questions from Patreon too. Um, I think we went through a lot of this stuff actually.
I have a random question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay. So you just traveled. You went to New England,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I have family from New England. I went to Berkeley and Boston. I love it.
Cool.
I have just a question. So,
Yeah.
I remember when I lived in Boston and it started to get into maybe this time of year, December, January, that it started to get a little bit colder.
Yes.
And it was relative to Florida, it has a lot of holiday things. It feels like the holidays. Do you find that your songwriting or production changes in the later years or with a different climate?
Oh.
For me, I was looking back into my projects and I saw that there was a lot of jazz and just a lot of different genres that I wasn't getting
Mm-hmm.
into in the summertime. Does that affect you at all?
That's interesting. Yeah. I think it has like in terms of because I grew up on the East Coast and I went to college on the East Coast. I went to undergrad in Connecticut and I'm doing grad school in New York. And I've lived here in San Diego now for like, I don't know, 13 years, 12 years, something like that. Maybe 11 years. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Um, and you know, like I was born out here and my family's from out here, so I've always kind of like visited here and, you know, had some kind of connection to here. But I never really thought about it as influencing my music, but then I was working with one of my instructors at grad school, and it was like applied studio music lessons. So it's just like one-on-one private lessons, but we're doing like beat making and stuff. Like he does production for Sony music, like a lot of like K-pop, poppy stuff. And he's awesome. And he teaches at Juilliard in Columbia. And so he was working with me and he was saying that he what do we call it? Started calling my music like indie cinematic pop.
Cool.
Um, and then at some point he said something where there was like a very East Coast, West Coast, like weird combo in my music. And I was like, huh, because I don't know if I've fully internalized like the difference between the East Coast and the West Coast thing. But like apparently it's, you know,
Like the
something's
Tupac and
happened.
Tupac Biggie type
Yeah, I guess, but like
fight.
I'm not
Yeah.
doing hip hop really, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like something and
Yeah.
yeah, that's my thought.
Um,
So I think it influences you even if you don't really notice. Because I didn't really notice, you know?
yeah, it's a good point. The reason why I started thinking about that is because some of the catalogs that I have my music in, I've done tropical house and different genres like
Oh
that, and
yeah.
they doubled down on me being from Florida. So I
Yeah.
was wondering if just in any way that influenced your genre. But I do get a kick of like wanting to do jazz and just different singer songwriter stuff when I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
climate like that. Which we don't get in Florida. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was just curious.
I feel like my listening habits have changed too. Like I know a lot of my friends back east listen to like a lot more like ska and like faster punky oriented stuff, and like I used to listen to that a lot more than I do now. And now I listen to more like I don't even know, like uh, poppy singer-songwriter or some I don't know, indie pop stuff, and it's like I don't know if that's a California thing or if that's like a me getting older thing or if it's just like, the type of people that I've surrounded myself with now that's influencing me. But it's interesting.
Hmm.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I see that too. I listen to a lot of reggae as well, which is popular down in Florida. In California, I know that it is as well. So yeah, it definitely does influence my listening style. And of course, the listening style can affect your songwriting and production as well, as we're always, as musicians and producers, we're always analyzing even when we're trying not to.
Mhm.
So it affects our production.
Yeah, for sure. Do you,
Mhm.
um do you ever mix for clients?
Yes. Yeah, I do mixing as well. Yes, I do.
Do you have any advice for, like, communicating with clients about mixing or for clients communicating with you about mixing?
So, a couple of things that I usually ask from the clients from the get go is if we had any influence or any references to start off. I think that's always helpful.
Yeah.
Just something that I can study to make sure that I am on the right track in terms of what's being prominent. I do ask them what would be most prominent. If you were to give me a list of the 5 elements that you want your listener to
Mhm.
hear, we have our drums, vocals. Usually, of course, it's our vocal on the top, but
Mhm.
for rock bands, we might say I want the guitars to be just like shredding on top of everything, or the drums, or whatever it might be. So I like to
Mhm.
get a list of what they want to be prominent and what they want to be heard. Um, from at any point for having those just cut through the mix a little bit stronger. Um, yeah, and then I like to just anything. A lot of communication is the big thing that I like to do with the mixing clients. I know that they have some really great programs that allow you to just sit in the mixing studio at this point and allow the client to hear it and kind of give you some feedback, which is
Yeah.
really cool. I haven't personally used those, but I know that some studios are using those and
Like the audio movers or whatever?
audio movers. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I just
yeah,
started using that one.
very cool.
I
And how was
caved.
that for you? Oh, did you?
It's been good. Yeah, it's been good. Because I have like some clients where we've gotten used to doing stuff in person.
Yeah,
And I've been doing more and more like production and not just like mixing. Which is like it's really helpful for them to be there because like
yeah,
anyway. So
yeah.
yeah, like recently we had some like plague scares and had to not meet in person, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. So, it's been working well. Yeah. It's,
Cool,
like, not quite
cool.
the same as being in person, but
Yeah, I
you
feel.
get the
And is there
session done and you
any?
don't have to reschedule it, which is really nice.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Do you find any lag, or is it pretty
Yeah, so what I
consistent?
do is, like, I'll open up Zoom, and I just did this last night too because I had a client that had to leave early, and then he was able to, hop in online, so I, like,
Oh,
mixed
cool,
while he left and then, but,
cool.
what I'm, like, moving my mouse around. I shouldn't move my mouse around because 'cause I'm screen capping. What
You're
what
good.
I do is I go to Zoom and there's, like, a Zoom, settings or preferences or something, and in there, you can go to, statistics, I think it is. There's, like, a tab for statistics, and you can look and see what the lag is on Zoom. And then you find that lag, remember that number, it's, like, in milliseconds or whatever. And then, what I do is I put the plugin on, like, the end of my master fader in Pro Tools, and then you can set in the plugin what the delay will be. So you match the delay for Zoom, and then that's it. You just, like, go live with it and send them the link, and it's really easy. Um,
That's so cool. I have not
yeah.
got that deep into Zoom preferences before, so
Yeah, I
that's
hadn't
really cool.
either. But,
That's
it
awesome.
works pretty well. It's like, one is more specific than the other, so you're kinda, like, ish close, but, like, it's good enough, so,
That's awesome. Cool.
yeah.
Um, So I wanted to ask you, I have another thing. I know it's your podcast and I'm asking you the questions.
That's cool.
What's one part of music production that you were afraid of before you started, but once you dove in, you found out it wasn't that bad?
Oh, probably actually producing stuff. Because like for the longest time, I was like, I'm an engineer. I'm only an engineer. You know, like I did music tech for undergrad and computer arts and technology, and I did economics as another major, but like not really relevant. But like, so I started out being like, I want to be on the tech side of things, and like in high school, I was. My friends had like punk bands and stuff, and like I played drums, but like I wasn't, you know, and I was never the type of person that wanted to be like playing in front of people. Like I don't, I didn't even want to be in front of the camera. And then I got a job that this is like a tangent. I'm sorry, but I got this job for Pro Studio Live, which was like this company. I think they're still around, but we would bring like multi-Grammy winning engineers into the studio and show their process. And it was a live stream show. It'd be like 5 hours. So it'd be like a full session, you know, and you get to learn from this person and ask them questions and like interact. And they were like, oh, do you want to be the host and do this? And I was petrified. I thought I was going to puke the first time I was in front of the camera. And I was like, I never wanted to be on the side, but like, I literally cannot turn down this opportunity to learn from these people. So I was like, yes, I'll do it. You just might have to work with me on the whole, like being in front of the camera thing. And they were really cool about it. So anyway, point is, I didn't want to be like a performer at all. But I loved music and I loved science, and I always did well at like science stuff. And physics. I love physics. So, I like totally forgot the question. Oh, being afraid of production. So,
Yeah.
so I like, you know, I was assisting and then working as an engineer in the studio. And like, I don't know, you get this like mental thing where it's like, oh, I'm just an engineer. I'm just an engineer. I'm here to support the artists and what they're doing. So the idea of like me kind of becoming the artist to some extent and like producing my own music or my own beats or like whatever, that always terrified me. And I was like, it's not going to be good enough. Like, this is not your strength. Don't try to be anything close to the performer. But then I started doing it and now I'm like really into it.
So that's
What about
incredible, by
you?
the way, because for being for producing, I think that's such, for me it was just intuitive because I was a guitarist, so it was always kind
Mm-hmm.
of like throwing out the ideas and always having some type of idea for that.
Yeah.
So it just shows how we're all, you know, having the perfect teammate that can really specialize in something versus another person is just where collaborations really make
Yeah.
the magic of it. For me, it was mixing and specifically EQing.
Okay.
Just looking at the analyzer on an EQ and just figuring out what that meant.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, maybe it would be intuitive to know for someone that really knows science like you, like what the frequencies are and all of that, and just having a good sense of that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was just, it looked like a different language. And it's something that still, it took me a long time. And would you agree that just training your ear for EQing
Mm-hmm.
is just an ear training,
Yeah.
timely thing of repetition?
Yeah, you gotta just keep going with it, and you get better at it as you go. Like I use Sound Gym. Have you heard of Sound Gym?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love Sound
Um,
Gym.
I have like an affiliate link if anyone wants to try it. It
Perfect.
gets you a discount. Like it's not, you know, anyway. But I really like it. Like I genuinely like it. That's why I have the affiliate link, and I've been using it for years, and I try to use it daily. Since I started like grad school, I've been kind of lazy about it some days, but I think it's really like it really helps to, even if you're not using something like Sound Gym is just ear training for audio engineers for anyone that doesn't know. So it's like helping you hear the difference in compressor settings and EQ settings and stuff like that, as opposed to like pitch, right? But yeah, for anyone, if you don't want to do something like that, even just like opening up your DAW and then opening up like a plugin and like moving the parameters really drastically, or like isolating something and then moving the parameters really drastically, it helps your brain like, ooh, my voice cracked. It helps your brain get like an anchor on what you're listening to. And then you like slowly get better and better at it. And like it is, we're reading, sorry, I'm like talking too much. But we're reading
Yeah.
this book, Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks, in my Patreon book club right now. And there was this really interesting part where they were talking, it's all about like music and the brain and different like, you know, brain conditions and stuff and how it affects your music. But they had this part where they were talking about how people think about the ear as sending signals to the brain. And it does, right? Like it receives information, it translates it, and it sends it to the brain. But what they found, like neurologists have figured out, is that your brain also sends signals to your ear. So there's like a feedback loop of sorts. So I was like, is that like the scientific thing for how ear training can work? Is that what that is? I think it's I don't know. I don't have I just think it's really cool.
That is cool. I do like
Yeah.
that. Yes, Sound Gym is incredible. I've done a lot of the different things that they have on that. And yeah, I would highly recommend that. Grab the affiliate link if you haven't tried it. 100%. It's amazing and it's helpful. It crosses over. But yeah, going into your DAW, it's just so underrated to go in and just, like you said, just be very drastic with pulling things up and pulling things down and just seeing what they do. It's like getting something and just not reading the instruction manual and just turning all of the knobs. So such a really good way to learn all of the plugins.
Yeah. Is that how you've been doing it? Like ear training, going for it?
Yeah, I think it's been a lot of trial and error and a lot of just failure and learning from that.
Yeah,
So
that's what
yeah,
we all do.
100%. Yeah. But 100%, it's been a lot of just doing my own things and trial and error and a lot of collaborations, which is great. That's been a big way that I've learned things. Just people that know how to use an EQ 10 times more than I do and just picking up these little things. And even when I would go and get my songs mixed and mastered, I would just study the difference of what I did versus what he or she did and just see what I can do to improve, and just learned a lot of tricks from that as well. So I think, again, just like on our instruments, as we're the accumulation of all of our inspiration, definitely it's going to be the same case if you get your song mixed or mastered, like someone like Cato, just get it mixed or mastered and really listen for like for what she does and all of that. So it's something that you can study.
Yeah, for sure. What's you said you went to Berkeley?
Yeah.
What'd you study there?
Songwriting. So
cool.
Songwriting was a lot of just kind of a lot of classes. We're sitting in a circle and sharing our songs and feedback. So I think one of the biggest things that I got from that that I still use every day is how to really give feedback, and the best way to do that, and to be really critical in a way that's not going to put the other person down and the way that they apply it. So that's something that we used a lot. And it was the point in the program where it started to get more technical. So that's where I really started to get more into producing, and it was very pop heavy.
Cool.
So that was kind of the roots of my my pop songwriting. In 2010 to 2012, that's where pop was really just electronic. We're thinking of like Zed and all of those artists that were just really, they were on the top of the charts, and of course still are. But so yeah, a lot of that. So we studied kind of basic songwriting, the foundational parts of songwriting, into getting them produced as well.
Cool. Do you have any like songwriting tips and tricks for people, or?
Ooh, good question. I can say a lot of things. But I think just to give a very general piece of advice is to have references. I have references from when I'm writing my chord progressions to melodies to production and mixing and mastering. I think every single part of my process has a reference or something that I can study. But yeah, in my personal case, I know that a lot of people like to be very creative with it, which you should. But I do a lot of the technical aspect. Being someone from a music school, I can't help but put music theory into it, and just doing relative minors and relative majors and just switching chord progressions around. Of course, that comes with the caveat of trying not to be overcomplicated in your chord progressions. Right. I had to scale back my minor 7 flat 5, sharp 9, sharp 11 chords pretty heavily since then. But yeah, always have references and write in the style that really gives you energy. For me, pop and hip hop and dances, I'm getting the energy as I'm creating it. And hopefully that translates as we release that too.
Yeah, I love that. That's like the thing about simplifying the chords too. It's like the head versus the heart thing, right? Like,
yeah,
you can make it really intellectually interesting, but if you're not feeling it, like,
yeah,
it's a choice.
100%.
It's, you get to choose which one you're into, but yeah.
Yeah. And it really becomes, I notice in a lot of just with the students that I graduated with, it's a lot of look what I learned, look what I can do here. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more about ourselves rather than the song. And that's what I realized. I stopped caring about whether someone knows that I know this music theory
Yeah.
versus this serves the song and this serves the lyric the
Yeah.
best. So I think it gets into the mindset a little bit too.
I love that. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I've already kept you a while. Do you have anything else you want to chat about before we wrap up?
This was amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Nothing in particular, but yeah, thanks for having me. This was incredible. Um,
Do you want to do like a
yeah,
shout out for your like Instagram, social media, website, whatever?
100%. Yeah. So website, josephcapalbomusic.com. That's JOSEPHCAPALBO music.com. And maybe we can link it somewhere
Yeah.
in the
I
description as
can link in
well.
the description and then put it on the screen too.
Perfect. Yeah, always feel free to reach out. Let's connect and let's support each other as musicians and artists or just listeners of music.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Music's collaborative.
100%.
Sweet. Thank you so much for coming on. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you,
My
Cato.
voice is cracking still.
We made it.
Yeah,
Thank
have
you,
a good
Cato. I
one.
appreciate it. You too. Bye.
Okay.